In section 1.4, we're just going to go over a few things you have to think about if you're doing statistical analysis. Okay, so a sample is a subset of the population that we're studying. Now, for it to be valid and actually help us, there's three things it has to be. It must be random. Okay, it has to be big enough. Small samples can throw us off. And it has to be unbiased. Okay, for example, if we were asking people, their favorite music group or their favorite music type, let's say their favorite band, okay? Now, if we just went to a country music concert and, we asked them their favorite band, well, one, this wouldn't be random that, those people chose to go to that concert, and it wouldn't be unbiased. Those people, if they're at a country music concert, they probably like a country music artist best. And if we only asked 2 people or, even 5 people, we wouldn't get much representation at all. You need big samples. Okay, one thing you have to be careful about when collecting data are what are called voluntary response. So these are things like surveys. It could be on the internet or in the newspaper. It could be over the phone, whatever. The reasons it could be bad is only people with strong opinions, if they get to choose whether they're doing the survey or not, are going to respond. So, for example, one example of this are the student evaluations that students do for a course at the end of the year or the end of a semester or whatever. The people who write in about their instructors are either people who loved that instructor or hated that instructor. People who didn't really care about the class, they don't take the time to fill out the response. Okay, and of course, voluntary response, these surveys or whatever, people can lie, and you have to be careful about that. So they can be dishonest. Okay, when you're asking surveys, you want to be careful about loaded questions. Okay, so you could ask, do you prefer a real Christmas tree or a fake tree? Now, saying the word fake, makes it has a negative connotation. To make it a little less biased or loaded, you might want to say something, do you prefer a live Christmas tree or an artificial one? Something like that, where there's not as much negative connotation. Okay, on the next page, we can ask, are these 2 questions equivalent? So the 2 questions they're asking are, will you support the children in our school district this November? So this is about some levy or something. And number 2 says, do you think the school district needs to take more of our money? Well, of course they're not equivalent. One, if you're asked the first one, you're not going to say, no, you don't support children. And you're asked the second one, you don't want people taking your money. So, both of them are leading you to give an answer in one way or another just by the way they're stated. And that's something you want to be careful about. Okay, you have to be careful about the orders and whether you're asking someone to agree. So on the second one it said, would you agree that men run more stop signs than teenage drivers? And number 2 says, would you agree that teenage drivers run more stop signs than men? And so just the order, if people just kind of want to naturally agree with you, they might say yes, even if they don't know. Okay, and then this is kind of a crazy example, but you also have to be careful about not asking more than one question in one question, because then people would be confused about how to answer. So this is a little funny, but it says, do you believe that smoking should be banned in public places and the violator should be shot? Maybe you think that someone, smoking should be banned, but, you're reasonable and you don't think people should be shot. So you have to be careful about asking these types of questions. Okay, and then on the next page, we want to talk about studies involving measurements. And just some things you want to think about with measurements. You'd want to have the same person take the measurements for the entire experiment so that, just so that people aren't taking them differently. You get a standardization along that. Okay, and you would want someone who's unbiased to do the measurements. Okay, and just one other thing to think about are self-interest studies. So self-interest studies, you might see this for a toothpaste brand or, people who are doing commercials to promote a product. They're studies who fund a study for their own result. So this one study result said that after a survey of 250 hiring professionals, scuffed shoes was among the most common reason for a male's failure to make a good first impression. Now, if you look into it, the people who actually funded this survey and put it on was a shoe polish company. So, does that make you believe it as much? Or would you think that they somehow did this study in a way that led to this result so that they could promote their shoe polish? So these are just some things you'd want to think about if you were putting together a survey or a study.